kind of music you listen to?
I'm a 90s kid, so if you find me in the gym working out by myself, it's probably an edited version of some of the Snoops and Dre's and Warren G's.
You 90s guys, y'all are all the same.
We're rap heads.
I'm
from a small Nebraska town of 3,500 people, and you bet I was driving around bumping my stereo system.
Test me in again, we let it rain. Please don't start us up. Got that black and white, that yin and yang. Mr. Officer, please don't search us. We don't got a thing.
Welcome to CelinaRadio.com. I'm your host, Ron Lyons, and this is the voice of Celina, Texas. All right, guys, welcome to another episode of CelinaRadio.com. And yes, it has definitely been a minute or two. And that's because there's this long and sordid tale about getting really sick. Was it COVID? I don't know. I'm not sure. It sure felt like COVID. And then having an electrical issue that basically took out some of my most important podcasting equipment. So then the adventure started trying to replace that equipment. And of course, nothing that they're making now is compatible with what was in use a year and a half ago when I started this podcast. So, what the heck? But either way, we got it figured out. We're back, and we've got somebody amazing on the show today, and that is none other than Wade Houchin. Now, he runs 289 Sports Performance, and he trains so many of the kids in the Celina area, and he is becoming quite the staple within our community. He is just very, very active. He's at all the football games. He's quarterback club. He's got a history of being a teacher himself. And now he's applying all of his wizardry, and you'll know what I mean in just a minute by that, to his sports performance training. So guys, do me a favor, sit back, relax, and let's hop into the conversation with Wade Houchin. Guys, I'm here right now with somebody that is very, very plugged into this community and offers something that's very unique. And I think you're going to love hearing all about everything he's got going on. He's recently gone through a rebrand of his business, and I didn't know that. It's been very, very interesting talking to him just a little bit about who he is, what he's doing, and where he's headed. And I am sitting here right now across from Wade Houchin. Wade, how you doing, buddy?
Doing great. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. And so you are known as one of the sports performance guys around town. And something that I didn't know about you is that you came from Nebraska. You're not like an old time Celina guy. So I have a lot of questions for you about what you think about Celina and all that kind of stuff. And we'll get into that. But how long have you been in Celina, Texas now?
Yeah, we've been, transplants for 14 months. We showed up at the end of last summer, came down from Lincoln, Nebraska, and I'm a Nebraska born and raised in a small town and moved to Lincoln as a young adult. So we found our way down here, and we'll get into that story a little bit later. But yeah, just over a year.
Absolutely. And I know that you've got a very interesting history. You are, I guess by default, You're a high school teacher or a teacher, or how is that? You told me that it's a little bit different in Nebraska than here. So here, if you teach gym or any of the athletic stuff, you also have typically some sort of a class, like you're also a this or a that teacher. So you said in Nebraska, I think you could actually just be an athletic teacher of sorts and didn't have to teach a subject. Do I remember that right?
Yeah, correct. I did teach high school special education for 9 years. And so, back home in Nebraska, you don't necessarily have to be a teacher to coach at the high school level in a public school. So, Most of that time I was teaching. I have a degree in social science and then a special education degree. So I taught the vast majority of that time. But as I started to grow our athletic training business out of the basement of our house, we got busy enough where I resigned from teaching, but yet I was still a varsity head football coach that last year before we moved. And so that's something that's very different that you're allowed to do. It's not necessarily encouraged. They'd like to have your coaches in the building and whatnot, right, for the culture piece and what a million reasons, right? But it's not a have to. So yeah, my last year as a head varsity football coach, I was also a gym owner. So unique kind of combination there.
It is. And somehow through a lot of different events and whatever that is, and we'll talk about that, but you ended up, like you said, a little over a year ago in Celina, Texas. So just right off the bat, how do you feel about Celina, Texas? Is it as amazing to you as it is to me?
Yes, sir. We came here. When we say God brought us here, we mean that wholeheartedly, not to sound overly pious, but we have no business being here except the fact that we're supposed to be here to do whatever the heck we're supposed to be doing. You know, I've got friends in Frisco that I thought I was going to be working with, and I had a connection in Plano that I thought was going to happen, and that was the antithesis of coming to North Texas. And why Celina? Because it was smaller than Frisco, and Lincoln, Nebraska is very similar to Frisco, and my kids wanted to be somewhere smaller, so we kind of pointed on a map and said, hey, that looks close, let's explore that. And I've got my friend of mine is a buddy of John Garm's, and so they had kind of a real estate connection, and you know, just degrees of separation. And hey, here's Prosper, but there's also Celina, and we landed here because we're supposed to be here.
Right on. And here you are.
Here we are.
You've got a place right now.
We do.
And it was, until just very recently, called Wizard Sports Performance.
Yeah, Wizard Performance and Rehabilitation.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then now it's called...
We are a 289 Sports Performance.
Okay, 289 Sports Performance. And
Yes,
give me the quick idea, like why the change?
Cool. Yeah, so the Wizard thing... I do a lot of neurological brain-based work that can improve performance, relieve pain, increase range of motion, and so on. In a coaching network / community that I'm involved in, that became a nickname. And then when your first name's Wade, the Wizard, and it kind of just all this
just kind of fits,
right? And so it was corny enough; it made me really uncomfortable, to be honest. So I figured, hey, maybe that's you live in this state of productive discomfort, right? So maybe that's a catchy enough business name. Well, it turns out that. That's fine and dandy when people walk in your door because you can have that conversation. But if someone in Prosper or Gunner or Pilot Point is looking for athletic performance, they're not, you're more likely to find a Harry Potter wand, on a wizard search than, and when we're largely kind of word of mouth, it's just hard to get those cold Google searches. So the 289 thing obviously speaks to Preston Road. It speaks to who we want to serve. There's some underlying tones with Ephesians 2:8 and 9. It articulates the gospel very well. We're going to start a track club, which is something I know I'm off the rails a little bit here, but it was going to be the 289 track club. My wife's been a long time track coach. So we come from a coaching household where it was football for me, and then we'd, catch our breath in the winter and she'd go coach track. And she's coached track, 17 odd years. Started a really successful club in Lincoln, Nebraska. And so it was kind of a mesh of all of this, maybe it's the right time, with my marketing company that I've contracted with, like, hey, let's just go and let's take the leap. I know we got a ton of kids out there wearing Wizard Performance shirts. And so there's always the changes. Those little things I think are what's the hardest, but now we have a name that actually says what we do. And, we're still working on, there's still a Wizard sticker on my window right now. So we're in the process right now.
So it's actively changing.
We're in the process. The website's up, and whatnot. And so we just want to obviously show up when people are looking for what we do, because right now there's nobody in town that's doing what we do. And that's not always going to be the case with the growth coming, obviously. But, we want to show up and play the algorithm game so we can get people in our door. Because when they come in, it's most of them stay when they actually see what's going on. But we hear a lot of like, I didn't even know you were here, and that's obviously not a great business model.
No, you don't stay in business too long when people don't know what you do or where you are or any of that kind of stuff. So luckily I do understand a little bit about what you do because I've got a fitness background, and I can just tell you, just from sitting here and talking to you a little bit before we actually started recording, you've got quite the unique thing going on, and you've got a very interesting tattoo that speaks a little bit to some of kind of what motivates you these days. So tell me what the tattoo says.
Yep. Overthrow status quo.
Overthrow status quo.
Yes, sir.
And just in talking to you a little bit, there is a status quo out there. It's in maybe even more so in sports performance training and that sort of thing. And it's like, human nature. We get kind of stuck in this is what we do. This is how we do it. And change is difficult, but it's necessary.
Yep.
So you kind of buck the system a little bit. You've got a little different and interesting take on some of this stuff. So share with me a little bit why you have the tattoo and how does that affect your business model and your philosophy?
Yeah, great question. That's a deep rabbit hole dive too. So get ready for a ramble. But
we have a lot of time.
Status quo to me, it's actually a Machiavellian quote, which, love him or hate him, he did what he did well. But, I've always kind of been a buck the trend guy. If it's you're kind of swimming against the current, you're probably going to find me, joining those couple fish that are going the other way. I think it's part of something that's ingrained in me, not to always say I'm right and you're wrong type of thing, but, not afraid to look outside the mainstream, whether that's, politics, news, media, all that stuff. So it's who I am somewhere deep down. And that plays into how we train athletes. The status quo, it's around here, it's prevalent here, it's prevalent back home, it's everywhere. Somewhere between this is what we've always done, and maybe we're not actually qualified to do this, this job that seems simple, I think, and it is really easy to get somebody strong, that from the industry. I jokingly say, hey, move heavy things against gravity, right? But I think when you separate yourself from, okay, if you want to get strong and, muscle strong, okay, hang out with your dad in the garage and bench press and do curls all day, right? And do this and your muscles will grow. But for me and trying to train athletes, it's like, okay, how can we actually train for your sport to the degree possible? People argue left and right over what transfers, on the field from the weight room. But, we train differently and everybody says that. I realize it's a catchy thing. Oh, come here. We're unique. We're this, we're that. We can put evidence to that through various certifications that, we're talking only a handful of people in the country have, things they can do from a neurological lens to, you take a back squat, for instance. We don't stop at 90 degrees. So there's extra ranges of motion. So we're going to go sit down on our calves all the way. It's a simple example, but we are very adamant about training ligaments and tendons. And, we see all these largely non-contact, unnecessary injuries in the chaos of sport where there's really, really strong people, but, those tendons and ligaments don't seem to be holding up. So really what we're doing is stealing the best of what I've learned over the years, whether it's, multiple master's degrees in coaching and exercise science and things like that. So the hard education, letters behind your name, but really when you learn is like, hey, I'm going to go seek this specific, modality out. Oh, that's catchy. You're putting your knees over your toes and everything you do. And you start looking around, it's like we play sports with our knees over our toes. No one's sitting back on their heels in a squatting motion. If you do, you're probably about to fall down, right? And so it's like, that doesn't look like sport to me. And you start just connecting these things that seem to be very common sense in the industry. And, we're not going to get too sports sciencey, but, some of it's like, make it make sense for me. Why are we still doing this? Or is there a better way to crack this egg? It doesn't make something necessarily black and white, good or bad, but maybe incomplete, right? So, so the status quo is is kind of, I think, and I'll air quote this, is a meathead bench squat clean type of meathead. Meathead's one of my favorite words because I'm a recovered meathead. I'm on like step 8 of my 12 step.
Gotcha.
I was a college football player. I chased weights. I took a lot of pride in moving the weight on the bar. And, by my senior year, I was much slower than I was as a freshman. I was much more injury prone, much less athletic, and that means a lot of different things, but you just didn't move as well, right? If I'd have been smart enough to stop halfway, I probably would have been more, ideal for the position I played. Right. So that's half of it, but I'll stop here for a second. And
so essentially there's the way it is, the way it's always been. Mm-hmm. And then comes along Wade Houchin, who is a bit more of a practical thinker, who has all of this experience, who has all of this education. And he says, hold on. We don't do things, and I'm going to get a little technical here too. Mm-hmm. We're not going to let our knees shoot out past our toes because we don't want to do ligament and tendon damage and stuff like that. So we're going to stay in this safe range of motion. Mm-hmm. And what you're saying is that in practical application out on the field, when you're literally lining up on that line or doing whatever the sport in question is, your knees are out past your toes.
Absolutely.
So you need to have conditioned those connective tissues, etc., to actually be able to handle that. And if you've only trained up to a certain point, then when you are pushed out, when you are put under extra strain, burden, or stress, whatever it is, something's going to give. You're going to have a knee injury, or you're going to have some sort of connective tissue issue. And that's what you're seeing. And you're like, I'm not okay with this. So you're not trying to necessarily revamp the entire athletic program anywhere, but you do have something to offer. So if there were parents of, say, a child athlete, and you do focus largely on children, from what I understand, in their athletic performance, if they wanted to have basically that add-on, that complete package of a child athlete or a younger athlete, you're going to help fill that void. You're going to help change some of those things and give them something that they're not going to get in their, hey, we've done it this way for 50 years and we're going to keep doing it that way. Am I close or am I off base?
No, I think you articulated that really well. Then that's what we do. We're trying to fill the buckets that are empty or not quite as full, and then very consciously ignore the ones I think that might be overstimulated. And I think credibility, is argued in a lot of different ways, but I've been on that side of the fence. I've been a high school coach. I've ran a high school weight room. I know it's difficult. I sympathize with 2 eyeballs on 40 kids, right? And I think most people would love to do more, but they're restrained by time and bureaucracy and all kinds of other stuff. So I think I can stand on a platform where I'm just not on the outside looking in because I've been on that side. And I think that's worth something. Depends on, someone else's opinion of that as well. But we like to train a full range of motion, which seems logical to me because we're going to move in those ranges. My daughter's a catcher and softball team. Her knees are in front of her toes 90% of the entire game, and that's one obviously small example, but heck, we do full range dips and full range pull-ups, and we're training the rotator cuff specifically, and we're training hip flexors specifically. You can't get that holistic training on like the big powerlifting movements over and over and over again. You're going to leave holes, and I don't think anybody has a perfect system. And you hit on something. You might have used the word extra. If your athlete's looking for something extra, and we have 4th grade through college. I've had a couple semi-professional basketball players, G League kind of guys that we've worked with as well. And what we do gets results, and we mark it and we track it and we can prove that. But at the same time, I am the most anti-more is better person. Like, I have conversations on you're doing too much. And when I'm in an industry that unfortunately is usually looked at as the extra thing, the add-on, hey, if we have a little extra finances, if we have a little extra time, and to really flip that narrative is like, no, what I do is what's going to feed all the other things that, your soccer club, your volleyball club, whatever sport, because we train athletes. I don't separate by sport. I don't train a Division I baseball player any different than I'm training a 4th grade football player, which sounds ludicrous, but it also speaks to maybe someone's inability to actually know how to work with people. I don't know how to sell a house, right? Like, ask my plumber to do my electrical work, right? And so just because you can coach a sport doesn't mean you can run a weight room and vice versa, right? So I think, the misnomers in this industry and even my competition is laughable, but it looks good on the gram, right? It looks good on Instagram. You have so ex receiver for the Dallas Cowboys, right, that's dancing around a speed ladder and telling kids that's going to make them faster. And I'm just sitting here laughing like you know nothing about ground force absorption and what the actuals. You're going to get good at tap dancing.
And isn't that unfortunate that not only just in your industry, but we were talking about that a little while ago, but I see people all the time, because I do have a fitness background, I see people, I always called it a fallback career.
Yeah.
It's like you wanted to do this or you wanted to do that, and that didn't work out. The .com stuff, whatever it is, it didn't work out for you. So what are you going to do? Well, I could become a personal trainer because I like to work out. I have a passion for that. I work out every day. Mm-hmm. I can go get my certification in about a week. Right. And next thing you know, everyone sees me as some sort of a fitness specialist, and they're asking me to construct their diet, and they're asking me how to work out and how to. And what I see from having been in that industry is that there is so much bad information, bad practices, bad advice. Yeah. I mean, it's just, and you've got to see that today as well. And I think that's a lot of what you're speaking to. So it's not. And in real estate, I mean, in the exact same thing, everybody's like, well, you're a realtor, you must know everything. Not at all. You have to be a master of your craft.
Right.
And in your case right now, you feel so passionately about this. You've experienced it from two sides. You've experienced it from the old school, this is the way we've done it. It's all about throwing numbers up on the bar and, setting personal best and stuff like that, all the way to, hey, hold on. That may not be the very best thing for these athletes. There may be a little better way, but you almost have to be counterculture, don't you?
You do.
And I'm notorious for making realtors mad, saying that realtors are a dime a dozen, that realtors they're not masters of their craft. They don't know how to negotiate. They lack some of the basic skills that are really required, but nobody takes the time, in my opinion, to really look deeper and see how qualified is this person. And so in your case, if they go and look and say, how qualified is Wade to take my kid and make them a better athlete, you've got all the paper.
Right.
You've got the degrees, you've got certifications that probably most people don't even know about.
Right.
And what you've done is you've brought this all under the roof of what is now 289 Sports Performance. And by the way, where is that located?
Yeah, we are at 1050 South Preston Road, right next to Millie's Restaurant, because we don't have a sign. So I tell people, find my girl Millie, and you'll find us.
Go to Millie's, and we're next door. Right. So give me an idea. And I happen to have been blessed enough to literally have my child has trained with you. Mm-hmm. And I wouldn't, obviously with my background, I wouldn't let my child go to just anywhere. So that, I don't know if that means a whole lot to you, but it
means a lot. Absolutely.
So when you have your facility, you've got this very unique perspective on how to do this training and stuff. What does a typical profile look like? Somebody walks into your door. Is there an assessment? Is there a discussion about goals and history? And then is there some sort of a recommendation for how many times you need to meet? Give me an idea, kind of an insider's view of what it looks like when somebody walks in your door the first time.
Absolutely. Great question. So, we're going to offer you a free trial, and you can call it an assessment. I think a lot of people in the industry would be, hey, let's see how you move. Let's and we do that, but we're really the goal in that, and we're all in sales, like it or not. And I'm going to send that athlete with our head trainer, Zach, and I'm going to talk to the parent. That's my role. I'm the face of the business, and I'm going to answer those questions because, I consider ourselves a semi-private facility, and which can mean a lot of things, but we keep our ratio no more than 8-1, right? Because we want to coach your athlete and teach them and monitor them. And again, I've been in big weight rooms. It's hard to see everything that everybody's doing. And so you'll come in, you'll go to trial, and we'll answer whatever questions you have, and we'll have the athlete go through I think some things that make us unique, we'll talk about what we do track, because just because we're not tracking your 1 rep back squat max doesn't mean we're not keeping track of a lot of things. We've got a whole wall full of marker boards on our key performance indicators that we keep track of. So we can explain that, hey, we're about speed, because I don't care if you're slow, you need to get faster. If you're average, you need to get faster. If you're fast, you need to get faster, because that's going to be a tide that raises all the boats. There's no sport, there's no rule in anything that being faster is not going to help you with. So besides the brain, that's the top of our peak of our mountain, and one of our tenets is be strong enough. And what I mean by that, not necessarily calculatable, but what's the demands of your sport or sports? What does it actually require you to do? Okay, college, I played small college football as an inside receiver, short white guy that was kind of shifty, right? So I ended up weighing 205 pounds at 5'9" on a football roster. So that means I'm 5'8", right? So I didn't need to weigh 205. Right. But oh my gosh, I could, squat over 500 pounds and, bench, over, close to 400. Who cares? It didn't make me a better athlete. And so we want to convey that, but we also want to show an athlete, hey, here's how we train your hamstrings. And we almost want to put them in a spot where we're going to show them kind of how weak they are, not in an offensive manner, but like, oh crap, I didn't know this was this bad. Because if I came in and had a bench press or something stereotypical, cool, I can do that at the middle school. They got me bench pressing there. Why, So we really are different. We do different modalities, different ways, different exercises. We're gonna, again, from the qualification standpoint, go get, if you want to get muscle strong, go hang out with your dad in the garage and do a bunch of curls and things like that. It's not hard to get muscularly strong, but are we strong for performance? Right? So, not to get too sciencey, but we're gonna move you differently. We're gonna hold positions, which is an isometric for those that don't know that, and we're gonna test you in different ways and try to build a complete athlete, versus maybe you've just been kind of stuck in these planes of motion that are over and over and over repetitive. And like you said, you articulated really well earlier, when the chaos of sport puts me in a different position, man, I better hope I'm strong enough to handle that. When I've got to dive for a ball or make a sudden change of motion, injuries are going to happen. I'm not saying we're going to prevent injuries, but I guarantee you we're going to reduce the odds of that happening because we're doing things differently. We're putting together a better human being for performance. Not to mention we can level your brain up, which is something no one's doing around here.
That's like a whole separate connection, and you've got a connection from just us talking ahead of recording today. But you've got something very interesting in that you're trying to connect the neurological aspect of athletic performance to the physical. And so give me just a quick bird's eye view of that. Like, what does that mean? Because they're obviously, everything CNS, right? Mm-hmm. Everything is connected. So how do you help connect that brain function to that end result, muscular contraction, function, performance, etc.? What are you doing to make that better?
Yeah, I love to talk about this because it's what I get nerdy about. I think training is kind of easy. It's a hard job, but
right,
when anything else, like if you're going to commit to your craft and really love it, you're going to get good at it. This goes back to when I was a head varsity football coach, and I learned a neurological warm up at a strength clinic. Blew my ever-loving mind. This was and still is a modality that every single person gets trained up in our gym to do. It's a quick, when you're good at it, 5-minute neurological warm-up where we're rubbing areas on your body to activate your central nervous system, to connect your muscles to your brain, to get them to fire or work in the right sequence. My last job, I was a head coach for 4 years at this school. Going into year 3, we fully bought into this. We didn't stretch one time before a practice or a game. We only used this modality, and we didn't have any soft tissue injuries. Nobody pulled anything.
Oh,
his concussions went away. We're like, oh my goodness, and this is at the time I was like, oh, this is it. This is the thing, right? But what it did is put me further down that neurological rabbit hole. And because someone's like, oh, you think this modality is cool? You should see this guy that does this thing. cool, sign me up. I'll go spend money I don't have and drive to places I can't afford to go to learn, learn this thing. And so I took some posturology courses and these primitive movement courses, and I'm learning how, like, if you don't crawl right as an infant, if you don't get big toe extension, your glute's never going to fire right when you're 30 years old because you never developed that pattern. The cool part is you can go retrain your brain to do that, and you literally just have to teach your big toe to push off the ground.
Very, very cool.
And you go further down, and I learned this system that's called the Square One system. That's by far the most powerful, awesome thing that we do, where we can literally identify compensations. There's a lot of sciencey things, and I'll try not to just talk to myself here, but we all have compensation patterns, things that we don't function correctly in, whether it's we underestimate the power of the brain's control of those things. So the amount of people I've got to touch their toes for the first time in their life, a very simple example, I can't even count. People say, oh, I have tight hamstrings. I'm like, you want to bet? Let me do some stuff with certain head positions, certain breathing. Let me tap into your vestibular system, which is your inner ear balance and blah, 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 sciencey stuff. And bam, like you flip the light switch, they're hitting the ground. When you pull out some of these layers of compensation. I showed you a picture earlier of a football player from up north, that town north of us got a 28% increase on his peripheral vision in less than 5 minutes. We drastically underestimate the power of the brain. Everybody knows it runs everything, but when you can tap into that, it's literally a cheat code for performance. Because in 5, 10, 20 minutes, one session, I mean, I've changed people's lives with this. I've got rid of people's vertigo and carpal tunnel and necks and knees and backs and all kinds of things that people have had for decades. Even other healthcare professional, physical therapists or massage therapists, that they can't fix themselves within their own trade. Cool, try this. Oh, that was it. And if it works fast, and it lasts. So you don't have to come see me 8 times. So I'll get 80-year-old women in for this, and I'll get high school kids in for this. The awesome part is when someone has a little injury or pain or whatever, we're able to, I would say 9 times out of 10, relieve that pain very, very quickly in the middle of a session.
Well,
I pulled a kid over yesterday. He said he hurt his knee in a football game, 6th grade boy. He was twisted and kind of got hit from the side. 2 minutes, pain's gone. Hey, put your knee in extension. Oh, and then what we do is a neuromuscular test. I basically interview your central nervous system. Hey, does the brain feel safe in that movement? And when we don't feel safe, we're wired for survival, right? We're divinely created to be fight or flight, and if our brain doesn't feel safe, that joint or that area of the body is not going to function properly. So this is a skill that I've learned, a certification that I have, and we can test your brain essentially to see if it likes that or not. I can tap you on the back of the shoulder and test it, and your arm's going to drop, So, and then we go through our process, clear out those fears, those inhibitory patterns that our brain has put there in place to protect us, right? Cleared out, and you're like, oh, it doesn't hurt anymore. I'm good.
Very, very cool. So there's a whole lot going on over there.
Yeah, there's a lot.
Right next door to Millie's. It's not just a workout place.
Not a 1,500 square foot cracker box that no one knows is there. Yeah.
Right on. And good things are going on in there.
Yes, sir.
And I appreciate that very much. I have a lot of respect for anyone who gets into fitness and decides not to be that very superficial layer of, I'm just a trainer and I'm going to flirt with all the girls and I'm going to go to all the happy hours and I'm going to worry more about what I look like in the mirror than what I'm actually doing to change this person's life. And you've certainly gone deep dive on all of this stuff. So very, very parallel in what we've done. And so I have an awful lot of respect for that. I'm real curious. So you're Celina's home now. Celina is it.
Yep.
And you have 4 kids.
Yes, sir.
So you've got all in school or not in school?
My oldest one is 24 today, actually. So he lives in Scottsdale, Arizona.
Very good.
Flew the coop, out of the house, all that good stuff.
Okay, so you still have 3 at home.
Yes, sir. Yep.
Okay. In the school district, are they
Yep.
athletes? What's the status of the fam?
Yeah, sophomore daughter, that softball, basketball player, a freshman son that'll doing football right now and track, and then a 6th grade boy that's football and track and wrestling. So
very cool. So very athletically minded. Obviously, mom is very athletically minded as well. So I have some questions.
Yeah.
We're gonna have a little bit of fun,
Sure.
because anyone can do a podcast too. It seems to be the thing these days. Everybody's like, well, anyone can do a podcast. The problem is most podcasts are not good, and in order to be good, you've got to offer something different, unique, and whatever. And you and I can sit here and talk shop all day long. We could talk about fitness and stuff like that. And I'll tell you right now that already at this point in the podcast, anyone who doesn't actually understand or have a desire to understand, or maybe an athlete or they're an athlete, if they don't have some connection to what we've been talking about, they're already gone.
Right.
And it'd be the same thing if you were a real estate person. You and I were deep diving on real estate. If you don't care about real estate, you've already checked out. But here's what makes this podcast unique, is the fact that we don't just do the boring stuff. We actually have fun too. That you don't have to worry. What I thought about for a minute was your athletic performance stuff. I thought about maybe setting some tests up, and we could test some of your times and some of your strength and some of your, but we're not going to do that. We're not going to do that. Instead, because of some of the limitations we have, I'm just going to ask you some fun questions, and we're gonna say, you know what? There's more than just this, very focused athletic performance trainer named Wade Houchin here. This guy actually, he loves Celina. He could have set up shop anywhere, but he chose right here in Celina, Texas to do it. He has a passion for training younger athletes, and he's set out to make a difference. And you intend to do that. You're going to make a difference in this community. You're going to help kids succeed in places that they might not be able to because they'd be limited by the training that they're receiving or the coaching. So you're going to help them in that way. Who knows? You may open doors for kids to have scholarships they might never have received before, because they get that advantage. They get that edge that they just can't get normally. And we all know that in all cases, if you've ever done any sort of sports or athletics at all, that a coach can be one of the most influential people in your life. I mean, it's just a fact. So by the sheer nature of the fact of the position that you're in, you're going to have influence on these kids. So thankfully you're right here in Celina, Texas. You're not in Prosper. You're not up in Gunner. You're not in Frisco. You're right here, but we want to know some stuff about Wade himself. So I'm just going to start off by asking you some kind of fun questions. So question number one.
Yep.
What kind of music you listen to?
I'm a 90s kid, so if you find me in the gym working out by myself, it's probably an edited version of some of the Snoops and Dre's and Warren G's.
You 90s guys, y'all are all the same.
We're rap heads.
Oh
I'm from a small Nebraska town of 3,500 people, and you bet I was driving around bumping my stereo system to a bunch of gangsters from California.
That's so awesome.
Full disclosure, I worked out to Elevation Worship yesterday, so everything in between, you know, Nirvana, Sublime, all those, the best generation of music that we all claim, right? Except we all agree that today's music is trash, so we can. We can all agree on that. I'm post 40 years old now, so I start saying old people stuff.
Nope, I'm with you.
Sir.
I'm well beyond that, so I'm with you 100%. So, what kind of vehicle do you drive right now?
I drive my commuter car, the Volkswagen Jetta, that I am dying to get rid of because I had a little commute to my last school in Nebraska, and it doesn't really serve my purpose.
And what is the next vehicle? If you could have whatever you want, what would the next vehicle be?
Practical or not?
Not practical.
Not practical. 93 Mustang GT, white, black interior.
93 Mustang
that 5.0
GT.
The last Fox body.
Notchback or a liftback?
Lift probably.
Okay, lift
not
back.
Convertible.
Yep. 5-speed or automatic?
You know, I'm a stick shift fan.
So 5 liter, 5-speed, lift back.
5.0 purring like a Ford kitten. But.
There you go. Cold air intake, maybe H-pipe on the exhaust.
Whatever somebody souped up for me, because Lord knows I ain't doing it myself. So, you know, I'm not going to go spend 20 grand on a fixer-upper, you know.
Right
I'm
on.
going to spend the 50 on somebody that's tricked it out for me because
But
I'm not a car guy.
I'm not understanding though. I think you could drive a 93 Mustang every day now. It's not the easiest thing to get in that little back seat on a 93 GT.
Yeah.
But it's not horrible. So I
can
think
drive
you
it
should
fine.
get
It
one.
doesn't mean anybody has to ride with me.
That's right.
Myself,
The front seat's perfect.
Right.
And if you remember, in 93, those seats were pretty darn comfortable.
Oh, yeah. You sit down and take a nap.
Absolutely. Throw you a banging system in there because, you got to play your 90s rap music and all that
I
kind
had
of
friends
stuff.
that quit sports and those crap heads went out and bought one, and I was jealous, but no regrets. But they were driving around because they weren't playing football anymore or whatnot
Right.
in high school, so they got their jobs and got their fancy cars. So,
Right on. So that's awesome. And so you live in Celina.
Yes, sir.
That means that you do things in Celina. So I don't want to. Obviously, people, not so much me today because I'm in a different a chapter of life right now. I'm no longer the fitness guy. I still have the knowledge, but I'm not living it every single day like that. So my nutritional intake is very different right now than say it was 6 or 7 years ago when I
Right.
was, kicking people's butts in the gym every single day.
Right.
What does your nutritional day look like? Are you able to say go to Lucy's and grab something over there, or do you do a whole lot of like meal prep? What's it like for you?
A great question. That's evolved over the years too. I got big and sloppy and fat after I got done playing college football because I kept eating like that.
Yep. I know that
And
story real well.
I have a disposition, probably genetically, to be overweight on the mother's side. So I always jokingly say, but it's true. When I'm skinny, I look like my dad. When I'm bigger, I look like my mom. And so, I went really hardcore ketogenic diet for 3 years, by the book. Didn't do holidays, didn't do anything, and I lost 75 pounds
Nice.
in 60 in 6 months. And then my wife told me I was getting too skinny, so but so food and me have always had a strained relationship because I can put it away like nobody else. And I'm not one of those people that I get older and I eat less. So right now how I eat is animal based, which is basically meat, fruit, honey, quality dairy as I can find. So when I get to Plano to buy raw milk, I do that. It's probably a little too carb heavy for me still. So the difference between that working for me is the difference between 3 and 5 workouts a week. If I'm hitting it 5 times, it works pretty well. So I was very anti-carb trained for a long time. And I feel like, an overabundance of carbohydrates is probably not great for any adult. It's great for athletes' fuel, so how I eat wouldn't be bad for an athlete, but maybe not ideal for the calorie intake and things that they need at this stage in their lives, so but yeah, unless it's involuntary, I don't really touch a vegetable, which is actually and I'm not even a vegetable hater. I've just done my own research from the people that I respect the most and follow that they're actually very little value in that, from a nutrient standpoint, or things you can't get otherwise. And when's the last time you ate kale and that digested well, right? Like,
well, and you'll agree with me, I'm sure, about this, but so much in the fitness and athletic world is driven by like trends and fads, and you're constantly fighting, or at least I was constantly fighting. People would come in and they'd say, oh, this new this, or this new supplement, or this new bar with this new whatever, or this so-and-so came out on her TV show or her radio show, and this is what she's suggesting, or one of the biggest things that I fought against was The Biggest Loser was a big deal at the time. And every single thing that they said to do on The Biggest Loser was what people felt like they had to do. And I was like, you don't understand. That's a TV show.
Right.
And those people are committed all day, every day. They don't have to work jobs. They don't have to do anything else. They've got full-time, nutritional, help and support. They've got these trainers. They've got, it's a different world for the people, the contestants on The Biggest Loser, and you working your daily job and taking your kids to sports and doing stuff like that. So, but I was constantly fighting against all of those nasty trends and fads. And even to this day, even though I'm not actively in it, I still have a lot of people who come back to me as a resource and say, hey, man, I really need to like kind of get this right or that right. What do you suggest? And I still get a lot of that. And almost every single time, it's somebody coming back with some new supplement. And this is guaranteed. If I can just get these HCG shots, or if I can, or whatever, human, was it HGC or HCG? But
actually both of those exist. And then HGH probably is one.
Human growth hormone. Yeah, if you could, in all of these
Peptides
different
are big now.
things come up. And you have to sit there and go, oh my gosh, it's like, you don't understand, this stuff's been going on for generations. And no, you don't need this latest and greatest. I'm not saying that certain things don't come out that are of value and stuff, but it's almost lost on the fact that there's so many people trying to get rich quick by introducing something to this market, because everyone's desperate to lose weight, get in shape, feel younger, have more energy, sleep better. I mean, it's a prime market, right?
It is.
And so there's a lot of snake oil and a whole lot of people who are more motivated by a dollar than by truly changing someone's health or their longevity or whatever. So do you run into that stuff still, or are you kind of immune to that because you're doing athletic training?
No, because I want to grow in that area too. I want to work on being, you used this word earlier when we were talking to turnkey place, where we provide the services that you need. And right now we're just in a scaling model where we can't, and we're working towards some things. But, I think I've stumbled across a few truths in this industry, and I don't think there's one, I think diet's a failure word. I think when you sign up for a diet, you sign up to fail. I think you need to sign up for a lifestyle and say, this is what I choose, and whatever your motivation is, because I want to still run with the grandkids, because I don't want to be diabetic like the last three, people in my life that, suffered with that disease. Whatever your why is, right? To not be cliche, but to find that. And I was really a zealot for the ketogenic diet because it worked so good for me, right? My body responded well to that. I've moved past that, hey, this is what everybody should do, and damn you if you don't. It's more of you got to find something you can stick with. But a supplement is a supplement, right? By definition, it should supplement your already healthy, active lifestyle. If you want to be a vegan, I'm probably going to make fun of you behind your back. But at the same time, if that's what your body feels good, and that's how you want to roll, same thing. If you want to go run marathons for a living, I'm going to probably tell you you're crazy because you're beating your body up unnecessarily, and there's better ways to crack that egg. But if you're zen, if you're runner's high, then God bless you, go do it. If CrossFit's your thing, go do it. If boot camp's your thing, go do it. Do something, right? Most of us are smart enough to know what food is absolute trash, but I think the misconceptions, the arguments become this guy says he doesn't eat vegetables. Vegetables are bad. I just don't think they're as good as people think they are. I think they're more medicinal in use than actually meant for food. I think I call them toxic survival foods because they're chock full of chemicals and they don't digest well, right? So, but that's oh my gosh, it's blasphemy to some people, right? People don't realize how much nutrition value is in red meat. And you follow some corrupt researchers and politicians that tie those things to risk of heart issues, which is completely false. But you have to know enough to know where to look and know that, that was funded by that person who had that control over this group and threatened them that they didn't go along with it when Eisenhower had a heart attack, and some corrupt scientist had a bunch of people on his payroll and changed the whole game. If you don't know, when we were in the late 80s, early 90s, and Velveeta cheese and everything was broccoli and covered in cheese and all this and that, if you don't know that started because they started making skim milk really popular, and they had all this extra milk fat left over, so we're not going to waste this, let's profit on it, let's go make cheese super popular, and then we're putting cheese on vegetables to make it taste tolerable. You don't know that's the history behind why all that advertisement came across. If you don't know that Tony the Tiger was full of crap and it was not a great breakfast, his breakfast right there is like a recipe for diabetes. If you want to go do that, drink some nasty fruit juice that's full of sugar and terrible grains that don't have no nutritional value, and cool, if that's what you're after.
Covered all in sugar,
right? 100%.
Yeah.
So, So, yeah, food's complicated though. And I feel bad for people that are confused, because you talk to me, I'll tell you one thing, talk to somebody down the street that's, that looks well, physically fit like I do for my age, and they'll tell you something completely different, right? Do what works for you. I'm happy to advise when people ask, I'll advise, but I don't think athletes need to train the same way that you and I need to eat, and vice versa, But
And there truly is a path for everybody to every end goal. If you and I were sitting here and saying, okay, how do you succeed in business? I could tell you one way, and it's going to be very full of the things that worked for me, and I'm going to advise against the things that, were kind of like low points or traps for me, things that I probably shouldn't have, gone through. And if I had had the foresight, I would have avoided them. And that's going to be my version of how to succeed in business. And you could talk to someone else who is also equally successful in business, and you might get a completely different story. So that's very similar to, I believe, how people find their path to God.
Yeah.
I think everybody's on their own journey, and some people have to hit rock bottom. Other people may have a little more foresight and say, hey, this is the way early, and they may not have to go through, life-changing events. Same for fitness. Some people are like, hey, I want to be healthy, and you don't have to have a heart attack before you decide to start eating clean and, doing all that. But I am curious. You brought up a ketogenic diet, and obviously I'm very, very well aware of keto, and these days, what I hear a lot of is like dirty keto or clean keto. That seems like now it's kind of, because there was a point in time where you could literally eat as long as it didn't have carbs in it, maybe even more like true Atkins, really, really high saturated fat foods and things like that. Hey, you eat the top off of a meat and cheese pizza and then follow it when you get home with some bacon. And
did that hundreds of times.
Yep.
Hundreds of times.
and I would say, just based statistically on my knowledge, I would see about 8 out of 10 people succeed well with losing adipose tissue. Okay.
Yep.
Secondarily, their blood lipid profiles would either improve or not get worse.
Yeah.
But for me, I would say about 2 out of 10 went the other way. We started having fatty liver issues. So the blood lipid profile went to, garbage.
Yeah.
And you have to wonder, I'm literally not with you all day long. So, I'm assuming that you're truly consuming everything that you're journaling for me.
For sure.
And maybe you're not. Maybe what you're doing is you are eating all this stuff, but you're also sticking that cinnamon roll in there. You're putting that sugar, that glucose in your system that
Bad
really
combo.
just rocks the whole thing the wrong direction.
Absolutely.
So based on the fact that we're counting on human beings to be honest, and that can't always be the case, especially with fitness. But in your case with the ketogenic approach for yourself, were you what I would call the 8 out of the 10 where everything improved, your blood lipids stayed good, and after you're over the keto flu, that first little bit of like maybe suffering, did you find that your focus and everything kind of got actually elevated? What was your experience with it?
Yeah. I don't have any negative experiences at all. I didn't do the keto flu because I understood that that's an electrolyte imbalance, and the pre-research kept me from that, because that's why you feel like trash, because all of your the water's draining out of your cells and you're peeing like a racehorse because the carbohydrates are holding water in your cells. And now I'm keeping my body, starving it from a carbohydrate energy source, thus I'm flushing that out, right? And so I understood that I needed to be taking an electrolyte supplement to counteract that. So I never felt like trash. I also did a lot of intermittent fasting, which I think supercharged that. So I would only eat within eventually, a 4-hour window a day, that type of thing. But I was still eating over 3,000 calories a day. I think counting calories is a recipe for failure as well, as a side note. But nothing negative. It's high maintenance, right? So I think that's why most people can't stick to it, because they approach it like a diet, a quick fix. It's like, no, can you really see yourself in the long term abiding by this philosophy or this method, right? If you have type 2 diabetes, I'd highly recommend it. It's been known to cure that very, very quick time, right? That's a sugar-based disease, for large part. Type 1, I'm sorry, I don't know, that's bad luck, but so that sucks. I feel bad for people at type 1, but I think, again, is this how I can't help but think it might go back to your ancestry, your origin. Where do you come from originally? What did your ancestors kind of eat? I think there's some more genetic prowess to that, based on I think we all eat something that might put us in a mood, right? Or might elevate us. It might sink us. Oh, that's supposed to be healthy. Why do I feel like taking a nap right after I eat that, right? So it's maybe just getting rid of some of these assumptions that, hey, it worked really good for me, right? Well, if you can't stick with it, then I'm not going to suggest it, And so I think you have to have that innate discipline. But I mean, and food's hard, Food's a drug. People don't realize that sugar is 4 times more addicted than cocaine to the brain. Yeah, 4 times more addictive than cocaine.
Absolutely.
You wonder why you can't put down that Pop-Tart, that cinnamon roll, that, and those are the obvious things, and those are just straight poison, but we don't realize that sugars are in bread and pasta and cereal and all the other things. The American, we're conditioned to have the meat, the veggie, and the potato, right? Or whatever, and like that third thing. And I find out when you can eliminate that third thing that you've just been conditioned to think you need because your plate looks empty.
Right.
Right?
Yep.
Or that a breakfast food is a breakfast food, your body doesn't know. Eat a steak for breakfast. Matter of fact, your day's going to go a lot better if you eat a ribeye for breakfast. I promise you that. You can put me on record for that. Eat a steak and eggs. That's your best breakfast you can possibly have. It's going to saturate you. It's going to fill you up,
Right.
So, like, advertisement's good. The TV worked. In my generation, we were glued to those ads, and we didn't know that it was a bunch of crap.
Right on.
You figure out that big food and big pharma, and they're all married, and they're all trying to get you sick so they can make money off you being sick. There's no money in health, so there's only money in illness.
Yep.
So,
nope. I agree with that completely. So you did basically the legit ketogenic diet. Never had any.
By the book.
Never had any problems.
Yeah,
so
measuring everything, weighing everything, and then to people that don't understand it, because I heard people like, "Oh, I'm doing keto," and then they tell me, I'm like, "No, you're not. Like, that's a state of that you need to be in ketosis."
Correct. So were you doing the pea sticks?
I did at first, and then I realized like they read your initial ketones, and they're kind of worthless after that. I didn't do blood glucose monitoring. I just was like, "Hey, look, the weight's falling off. I feel good. Yeah, maybe it's a little irresponsible, but I'm not. No, I'm not going in for blood work, right, wrong, or indifferent. It works. I feel good. It's clearly, visibly working,
Right.
Well, the worst part about it was my whole family is done eating dinner by the time I'm done weighing and measuring my food. So,
right.
Like, they're off to the next thing, and I'm sitting down to eat finally.
It is a level of commitment.
Oh, goodness. Yeah, that's probably why I don't do it anymore.
I want to ask you this, since you did do the ketogenic diet, how recently were you pretty committed to doing ketogenic diet?
I've been off for 2 years and been more on this animal base. So basically, I reintroduced fruit and honey and some dairy into the diet.
Okay.
So
a little more paleo, or
no, because I'm a touching vegetable. So it's called animal based. You're eating.
So you're not caveman eating.
I'm not carnivore. I tried that. I got too used to having my sweet stuff on keto, which doesn't sound normal, but you can make a lot of really good sweet things on ketogenic diet with monk fruit or stevia based.
Right.
And it was just too restrictive. I know a lot of people that get rid of autoimmune diseases off literally eating meat and salt and water, and they're healthy as can be.
So I want to know, what was the last, you had mentioned a while ago, it kind of made me laugh. You said Pop-Tart, but what is the last thing that Wade Houchin had that was kind of in that category? Like, what's the last Pop-Tart, cinnamon roll, or candy bar, or sugary soft drink? What's the last thing like that you remember having right now?
Oh, yeah. You asked me on keto, it would have been like, 2 years ago. But no, like, weekends I get pretty lax. I don't drink, so I'm not getting those calories. It's probably just pizza once a week or something, or Friday or Saturday night. I'd rather have salt than sugar. Got a couple nemesis on the sugar. You put a cheesecake in front of me, a real one, that's probably going to get destroyed. But and sometimes it's like it's somewhere between life's too short and I work really hard for what I do, and it's not so doctrinal, or that you
Absolutely.
I'm not as strict, but I probably 10 pounds heavier than I'd like to be, and so I realize that. But I think what's maybe good for the audience is what being on a strict regimen like a ketogenic diet, by the book, following it to a T, it's done for me. It's given me the power to say, if I need to go lose 10, I can do that in 2 or 3 weeks.
Right.
And now I have the knowledge. Like, all right, if I really want whatever I'm looking for personally, because we all judge our own bodies worse than other people do.
Right.
If I want this result, at least I have the knowledge that I can go get it.
Right.
Because I know it worked for me. And I think the power in that is probably overall the best benefit from that experiment, if you will.
So I did 19 years straight of perfection eating. That means that in 19 years, and I wouldn't, my system was clean quality protein with a complex carbohydrate spaced out in a way that would boost your metabolic processes. You'd never be hungry, so you never over consume. Small meals frequently was kind of the key. Monitoring your macros, so you kind of knew that you weren't going too far or falling too short, that sort of thing. And then in time, you've conditioned yourself. You know what's right. You don't need to necessarily log your food every day in order to, be close to target and all that sort of thing. And but after 19 years of doing that, and very, very little of the things that caused me to gain weight and have to go through this transformation, many, many years ago, I allowed those things to come back in, thinking that I would have full control over those things. And like, okay, for a minute, I'm going to go ahead and allow myself to have the pizza, the chicken fried steak, the whatever else it is, the things that for 19 years I didn't do.
Right.
And we're 6 years later right now. And so it's been a real interesting personal study on how these things go. Now, somewhere in the middle of that, I broke my back too. But I don't even want to offer that up as an excuse for allowing these last 6 years to happen as they have. But I don't feel anywhere near as good as I did. Right. I don't look anywhere near as good as I did. I don't have the, going upstairs and stuff that was a joke. I'd run anywhere back in the day. Now I'm like, movie theater, and we want to sit at the top. I'm probably going to be a little winded when I get up there. None of that is okay. That's not,
it's really not
living your best life.
Right.
That is living maybe an American way. And, to add to that, something that I see an awful lot of is that we tend to get kind of in these lifestyle functions and like you said, habit. So one thing I see a lot of, like middle-aged women especially, is they love to have their wine. And, by default, that ethyl alcohol, that ETOH, that is a CNS depressant. Right. And you've got... So it's a metabolic depressor. So it's gonna actually slow down your metabolism. And you pack all these sugar calories in there for something like a margarita or something like that, and you do that regularly, and that becomes like it's a thing. And so whenever you say, okay, in order to kind of really get you back on point, first of all, we're gonna have to start moving and get you active again and do things like that. Second of all, we're gonna have to cut back on that alcohol. That's just as hard as telling a person who's addicted to sugar that they've got to give up the sugar. And it's tough. It's really tough. And some of that stuff is just, hey, I'm a middle-aged person. This is what I do. Or I'm a guy. I watch sports on the weekends. I watch football, and I'll knock off a case of beer. Some of that stuff is just habit. So how do you feel? You're around that 40-ish something.
Yep, 41.
41 mark. And you're kind of coming out of that very, very hardcore athletic, and you're evolving now. So what do you see? What scares you about the future for Wade as far as your personal fitness and all of that stuff? Do you feel pretty confident where you're headed, or do you know you're going to face some things that you're going to have to figure out as well?
Yeah. Overall, I feel very empowered. There's things I can do with my body that I couldn't do even as a college athlete, based on some of these training modalities, based on leveling up my central nervous system. Things I worry about, I think most are hereditary. My dad joked with me a couple months ago that, it's either going to be your heart or your brain. It's like heart attacks on one side and Alzheimer's on the other side. I know a lot of that has to do with nutrition, but my dad had a mild heart attack not even a year ago, and he's 5'9" and 150 pounds and not an ounce of fat, and has prided himself on his health for his age his whole life. He works his tail off, and by all accounts, was very healthy. And then he rolled in and had a 98 or 9% blockage in an artery. So I'm not going to dismiss hereditary things that make me nervous. So I continue to learn and grow. I try to train myself like an athlete. I want to maintain that. I'm still doing some sprinting once a week, whether it's inside on our sprint treadmill. And I think a lot of us think we have to fall off farther than maybe we do. You will lose it if you don't use it. You can YouTube 80-year-old ladies, deadlifting a couple 100 pounds, and so much research on bone health and resistance training, and so even with our young athletes, heck, if you never get that scholarship, but now you're empowered with, I know how to work out, I know how to take care of my body, right? Because I learned some very functional ways that I don't do anything with our athletes that I don't do myself. And I don't know that I'll be sitting here at 60 saying that. I'm not claiming that, but part of it's like, I want to know how it feels. I want to know what I'm putting you through. And I'm going to make sure I keep myself in the state where I can still do that. I'm not afraid of a whole lot. Maybe besides the unknown, because we never know what's really under the hood, right? Until we get the blood work, go examine things, I could have some sort of cancer right now that I have no idea about, right?
Right, absolutely.
Sometimes you get the short end of the stick, right? Or, everybody knows a guy that chain smoked for 70 years and he's 104 years old, right? So it's like sometimes life just sucks,
right,
it just hits
right.
you wrong. So.
Yep, absolutely. And that is human biology, and it is the way that it is. And so you've got a great thing going on over there. You're obviously very passionate about it, and you've got a very interesting perspective because you're a business owner. You're in a city that's growing super, super fast. You're blessed enough to have a location to actually put into practice what it is that you believe, your philosophies, and I can relate to that 1,000%. I think it's amazing. It's a fantastic place to be, and probably one day, much like me, you'll roll out of this and into something else. And be interesting to see what that is at that time. You may be a realtor or something. You never know. It could happen. I was
a licensed electrician out of high school, so this is like another career,
right?
Electrician to teacher to gym owner, and who knows what's next.
And who knows what's next? It takes an awful lot of a person in your position to constantly be on, to constantly be pouring into all of these athletes or these clients. And I think you only have so much to give. So in a matter of time, you're like, okay, self-preservation, need to roll it back just a little bit. So it'll be interesting to see where you go. But that's years down the road. Right now, you're going to kick it right here in Celina, Texas, the most amazing city in the United States. We're very blessed to have you here, Wade. And thank you so very much for being on the show. I hope you've enjoyed it as much as I have. And if you are a gym head, a gym rat, if you care about fitness, if you care about performance, if you care about any of that, then I know you loved listening to this. And no, we didn't do anything crazy today. Wade didn't make a cake, and he didn't have to put on makeup or anything like that. I'm not real sure how that would have gone. He probably wouldn't be a fan of that.
Any uglier, so we're good. So.
But Wade, thank you, buddy, for being on the show, and I'd love to have you back on again. Good luck in doing the rebrand of the business. And for people who don't know, 289 Sports Performance, you're on Preston Road, right next to Millie's. Are you active on Facebook, social media, any of that stuff?
Yeah, we're all over Instagram. So 289_sports_performance. Okay. That's a connected Facebook thing. So yeah, we get out there. There's stuff posted every day. You can see what our athletes are doing. At the very least, there's a story every day. So, I think for us, sports are huge. They're an idol for most of us, borderline idolatry, and we're trying to be here to help elevate that small window that they have to perform, and it's going to go quick. It's going to happen fast. And what we ask out of young people's bodies right now to just go year round, right? Most of us grew up playing more than we did actual organized sport. The dynamic, the paradigm has completely shifted. And that's not, unbeknownst to anybody, but think about what we're asking these young bodies to do. And are they actually equipped, prepared for it? Part of my mission is get rid of these boots and braces, right? There's so many overuse injuries. Well, we're not going to stop. You're not going to stop signing your daughter up for club volleyball. I'm not going to stop putting my kids, right? So it's already shifted, right? It's not going back. So we need to take care of our bodies like we arguably never did before, because instead of jumping off that garage, now I got to jump you off a box because you're not going out and jumping off the garage anymore because you got 5 volleyball practices a week. So
we nailed it.
Really, then that's the whole antithesis of what we're trying to do. We're trying to prepare your bodies for what now culturally we expect of our young people.
Right on.
You know, it's not swinging off a tree into a creek anymore. And those good old stories that we have from our childhood. And trust me, take me back. I've signed on the dotted line in a heartbeat. We're asking our kids to go 365, 24/7, and we're assuming their little joints and ligaments and things are going to hold up, and then take a look around.
Right on.
Take a look at the knee braces that you see at tournaments. Take a look at it's there, the evidence. That's our mission. Keep you out of that. Keep you primed for what you want to do with this window that you've got. So.
Love it. All right, guys. And so if you are one of those parents, and if you do exactly what Wade was just saying, if you're out there chasing all the athletics, all the sports, and we all know the world has changed, much like what Wade just said, it's not like it used to be, then there's a place probably in your child's life for the kind of training and the opportunities that Wade's offering over there. So go check it out. I know Wade's a great guy. Like I said, personally had my daughter in his training, and I would not put her just anywhere. I'm very, very particular about that. So I did my research and felt very comfortable with it, and I'd send her back in a heartbeat. As a matter of fact, I'm certain that we're about to do that. So, all right, Wade, thank you, and God bless you, brother.
You too, Ron. Appreciate you having me on.
So what did you think about Wade Houchin? Awesome guy, very, very knowledgeable about what he does, and that sports performance thing is huge right now. If you want your kids in athletics, if you want your kids in volleyball and soccer and football and everything else, they need every advantage they can get. And he was right when he was talking about how many of the kids now have braces on and things that indicate that they've got some injuries and things like that. That's not okay, and it doesn't have to be that way. Wade would probably argue that this music doesn't have to be playing right now, and this is my solution to his 90s stuff. To throw a little bit of 80s music in here right on the end of his podcast. So yeah, Wade, this is for you, buddy. The 90s wasn't the good stuff. The 80s was the good stuff. You just kind of got here a little too late. I won't hold it against you. Guys, check out everything we've got going on the Best of Celina. Wade is a regular on the Best of Celina. It's on Facebook. It's a group. It's very positive. It's very uplifting. And as of this episode of CelinaRadio.com, we are sitting at almost 9,200 people in the group. The Best of Celina. Now, we've got some crazy awesome things coming up. We've got a little Christmas party, a little Best of Celina Christmas party coming up. That's December the 5th. We're getting all of these toys, and we're taking 2 toys per ticket that'll get you into the event. And the event is at 229 on the square, December the 5th, from 5 until 9 p.m. It's going to be a fantastic deal. All the toys are ultimately going to make their way over to the Toys for Tots deal going on the square that same evening. So, guys, it's been a great splash back into the podcast world. I'm so glad to have the equipment going again. So glad Wade Houchin has a lot of patience, because we recorded this episode just on the tail end of me being sick. So he's been very patient. Thank you, Wade, for that. Thank you for giving us what you do over there at 289 Sports Performance. And guys, thank you for being amazing. As I always say, stay safe and God bless.